feel, cause I know that it's something real. Gonna say how I feel, cause I know that it's something real. Hey, hey. Gonna say how I feel, cause I know that it's something real. Gonna say how.
Well, hi everybody, how are you? Yes, we're going right into story. Thank you for being here, you guys. It is a night of a premiere because I am most likely off grid. If there is any chance that I have a signal where I am, I will try to get on the premiere and chat with you guys, but I still didn't want you to miss out on story time. So I pre-recorded a few pieces and have them for you. And thank you for being here. So most likely this time, in fact, I know I am going to be at Fort Worden in Washington State, and it's a state park with very little coverage and a lot of army bunkers, old army bunkers that I'll be photographing in and around, and it's on the water. Last time I was there, the coverage was pretty bad. So I thought I would pre-record a story for you, and so you had something. Yay! And I chose something tonight that is pretty hilarious. I thought you'd need a good chuckle. And so this particular book is by an author by the name of David Shannon. Now let me just get a screen share up here for you so that I can show you his work. There you go. Okay, now David Shannon. So his about statement, if you look at it carefully, he says about David Shannon. David Shannon was born in a tiny log cabin with a dirt floor and no windows on the banks of the Missouri River near the corner of 8th Street and Broadway in New York City. From his bedroom window he could see the Eiffel Tower, and on a clear day the little country of Russia. David attended public school where he loved to gaze out the window of the principal's office and count things in the sky like clouds and birds and Mrs. Dobson's amazing pig. He was inspired to become an artist by his next-door neighbor, Mr. Grappenfiel, an extremely wealthy and very unhappy businessman. David lives in a red house with a linoleum floor, a hot water heater that works really great, and lots of windows. Do you believe this? So you can imagine that's his about statement, how he really is. His actual information is he was born in Washington, D.C., and he grew up in Spokane, Washington. Yay. And he likes to draw, and his books are just hilarious. He does the illustrations for his books. They're so cute. They're so funny. No David is the story of his own life when he was a child, and it's infamously funny. And he liked to draw as soon as he could hold a crayon. He went to Hutton Elementary School, where his teachers soon realized that if they let David draw murals, it would keep him from disrupting the class. I would have loved to have him in my classroom. Yep. He has done so many different things. His first book was How George Radburn Saved Baseball, which was named a New York Times Best Illustrated Book in 1994. And in 1999, his semi-autobiographical No David received the Caldecott honor. David has written and illustrated over 35 books for children, and he lives in Los Angeles with his wife and his daughter, Emma. So here are some pictures on his website of his books. This is what greets that. He's quite the illustrator. It's just really fabulous. Let me see if I can show you some of his books. Here. Roy Digs Dirt, Mr. Noggin Body and the Childish Child. Mr. Noggin Body gets a hammer. Grow up, David. David gets in trouble. David goes to school. Busy Ms. Lizzie. No, David, it's Christmas, David. David has a big star. Duck on a Bike. Too Many Toys. Alice the Fairy is just an amazing book. But tonight, we're going to be reading A Bad Case of Stripes. Oh my goodness. It is a book that I think that you will get a big kick out of. It is one that I always enjoyed reading. Of course, you know me, I always enjoyed reading most of the books, but this one the kids would really laugh and we could do some really kind of fun, different, creative things. But welcome to A Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon. Yes. Thank you. Wetting my whistle there. And there we are. Right here. A Bad Case of Stripes. I'm going to make sure that you can see me well. And let's put this over here. There, you can see me a little better if I read the book this way. Good. Yeah. All right. A Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla always worried about what other people thought of her. Today she was fretting even more than usual. It was her first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits, but none seemed to fit quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror. Then she screamed. Ah! Her mother ran into the room and she screamed too. "Oh my heavens," she cried. You're completely covered with stripes." This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camilla's forehead. "Do you feel all right?" "I feel fine," Camilla answered, "but just look at me." "You get back in bed right this instant," her mother ordered. "You're not going to school today." Camilla was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what the other kids would say. And she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camilla.
"Most extraordinary," he exclaimed. "I've never seen anything quite like it. Are you having any coughing or sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness of breath, or uncontrollable twitching?"
"No," said Camilla. "I feel fine."
"Well then," Dr. Bumble said, turning to Mrs. Cream, "I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up these stripes in a few days. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me."
And off he went. Just do something real quick here for the... There we go. Yeah. There. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Crayon and Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal, but when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she broke out in stars. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, "Let's see some purple polka dots." Sure enough, Camilla turned all purple polka dotty. Someone else shouted, "Checkerboard!" And a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you can change channels on a TV. That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Cream, he said. I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school. She's just too much of a distraction. And I've been getting calls from the other parents. They're afraid those stripes might be contagious.
Camilla was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her. Now nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better.
Isn't there anything I can get you, sweetheart?
He asked. No, thank you, sighed Camilla. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans, but she'd been laughed at enough for one day.
Well, you see, I see, Dr. Bumble mumbled when Mr. Cream phoned the next day. I think I better bring in the specialists. We'll be right over.
About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived with 4 people in long white coats. He introduced them to the Creams.
This is Dr. Grope. This is Dr. Sponge, Dr. Cricket, and Dr. Young.
Then the specialists went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and jabbed and tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. Well, it's not the mumps, concluded Dr. Grope.
Or the measles,
said Dr. Sponge. Definitely not chickenpox, put in Dr. Cricket. Or sunburn, said Dr. Young. Try these, said the specialists. They each handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills.
Take one before each before bed, said Dr. Grope.
Then they filed out the front door, followed by Dr. Bumble. That night, Camilla took her medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different. But when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant, multicolored pill with her face on it. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mr. Cream called, but this time, instead of the specialists, he brought the experts. Dr. Gord and Mr. Mellon were the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to, and the experts wrote down lots of numbers, and they huddled together and whispered. Dr. Gord finally spoke. It might be a virus, he announced with authority. Suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camilla. Or possibly some form of bacteria, said Mr. Mellon. Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. Or it could be a fungus, added Dr. Gord. Instantly, Camilla was covered with different colored fungus blotches. The experts looked at Camilla, then at each other. We need to go over these numbers back in the lab, Dr. Gord explained. We'll call you when we know something. But the experts didn't have a clue, much less a cure. By now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house, telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon a huge crowd was camped out on the front lawn. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, an old medicine man, a guru, and even a veterinarian. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camilla's strange appearance until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots, and berries and crystals and feathers and a long furry tail. But nothing worked. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she could cure Camilla. "Close your eyes," she said. "Breathe deeply and become one with your room." "I wish you hadn't said that," Camilla groaned. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth. Her nose was a dresser. The two paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran from the room. "What are we going to do?" cried Mrs. Cream. "It just keeps getting worse and worse." She began to sob. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet knock on the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. "Excuse me," she said brightly, "but I think I can help." She went into Camilla's room and looked around. "My goodness," she said with a shake of her head. "What we have here is a bad case of stripes. One of the worst I have ever seen." And she pulled a small container of small green beans from her bag. "Here," she said, "these might do the trick." "Are those magic beans?" asked Mrs. Cream. "Oh my, no," replied the kind old woman. "There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans. I'll bet you'd like some, wouldn't you?" she asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big, heaping plateful of lima beans more than just about anything, but she was still afraid to admit it. "Yuck," she said. "No one likes lima beans, especially me." "Oh, dear," the old woman said sadly. "I guess I was wrong about you." And she put the beans back in her bag and started toward the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good. And being laughed at for eating beans was nothing compared to what she'd been going through. She finally couldn't stand it. "Wait!" she cried. "The truth is, I really love lima beans." "Oh, I thought so," the old woman said with a smile. And she took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. "Mmm," said Camilla. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, and squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around. When it stopped, there stood Camilla, and everything was back to normal. "I'm cured!" she shouted. "Oh, yes," said the old woman. "I knew the real you was in there somewhere." And she patted Camilla on the head. Then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterward, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never even had a touch of stripes again. And that is A Bad Case of Stripes by the amazing David Shannon. Yes, I love his work. It is so much fun. Let's see. There we go. Yes, it's, I mean, it always was a great story for talking about people liking different things and peer pressure and what we do and what we try to fit in. And just like always, we're trying to make things work for others, and as RuPaul always says, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love anybody else? So what if you like lima beans? So what if you have a interest that other people don't? It's yours. And when Camilla finally decided to own it, well, it took the wisdom of a sweet little old lady. It just disappeared into the... I wonder where she went. That's the imagination of David Shannon. It is such a good book. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's story. I am sorry I can't be here with you to chit-chat and see what's in the chat, although maybe I am. Who knows? We'll see. But I'll be back with another story soon. But there'll always be a story for you every night at this time. So until the next time, you guys, take care of each other. Take care of yourself. And as I always say, keep looking for the beauty hidden in plain sight. It's all around you. But the first place you'll find it is by looking in the mirror. I'll see you next time. And we think, there we go. All right. Bye, everybody.
In the heat of the night, we could get lost in all the lights and sounds. Feeling alright, we won't go home, we will just stay here downtown. There's not just stars on the boulevard, they're in the light in your eyes. Oh, we don't need no black cards, I just need you by